Well, hello, folks. I'm here in my lime green jacket. Is this lime green? Safety green, yellow, some color. And it's a nasty day. And I thought that today would be kind of an appropriate day to share with you the first trip to Africa. Now, I told you about how in the roundabout way, the best I could, about how the Lord led me to go and told me I needed to go to Africa. And so I never did get really any answers on what to expect or, exactly where we was going. I just know I was going to Kenya, and that's about all I knowed. And so it come time for us to go, and how I packed was I packed like I was going to go on a camping trip for a month. So mostly I took food. Now I took a water purifier because I thought, well, I may need this. And that's how I packed for the first trip to Africa, was like I was going camping for a month. Except for I didn't take a tent or a sleeping bag. I did take a small backpack, but I had 2 big old bags of luggage. And a lot of times when you're flying international, unless, you have to check with the airline you're going on. But it's a little different. In the U.S., they allow you either 49 or 50 pounds. Most flights will let you take that much. If you're going international, they'll allow you up to 70 pounds. So a heavy bag. And, that's plenty more. I mean, I didn't just have food. I mean, I had some clothes, and I had, a couple of different Bibles we took with me because I figured I'd end up giving a couple of them away. Some things like that. And so I went and met with them, and we loaded on the bus, and off we went to the airport. And I have done a lot of air travel before. Whenever I used to work on the road, was always flying back and forth. But other than going to Puerto Rico or to Canada, I hadn't been out of the United States. And with air travel, the farthest flights was like up to Portland, Oregon. I flew several times back and forth to Portland. But and I think I'd flew out to Seattle by this point in time. I'm not exactly sure. But anyhow, so we met, and I don't know if we went to Charlotte. I think we did. I think that's where we flew out of. We went from Charlotte to Detroit, and from Detroit to Amsterdam. And so on the flight from Detroit to Amsterdam, we had this, our group that we all met up and left out together, but we wasn't sitting together. Most of them had seats together. I kind of had a seat off, not far away from them, but wasn't right there with them. And so I got on the flight, and they was usually, it's always big planes when you're flying overseas. And I can't remember if it was it seems like that they was 3 seats and then 4 seats and 3 seats. Anyhow, and I sat next to this guy, sat down next to him, and of course, I'm pretty excited. I'm heading off to Africa for a mission trip. And one of the things that I couldn't really get my head around was that I wasn't going to build nothing. Because everything that I'd done had to do with fixing something, building something. That had been the mission trips I'd been on. I was always fixing or building, and then occasionally I'd talk to somebody about Jesus, but a lot of times it wasn't no different than going to work every day. And as I had been praying about it, and I was like, well, God, I don't really understand. What he told me is he said, you're going to be building. He said, you're just going to be helping build my kingdom. And that, I was like, well, okay. So anyhow, we left out, and I sat next to this big German guy named Roland. And, sat down there, and this is just kind of how I am. And I introduced myself, and he said, I'm Roland. And I said, well, Roland, do you like to talk? And he said, no, I don't like to talk. And I said, well, I like to talk. And I said, if you want to jaw a little bit, I said, you just let me know. So we're on the plane for 8.5 hours, whatever it takes to get there from Detroit. I can't remember. It's a pretty long flight. Well, I'd talk to the people in front of us. I'd talk to the people beside of us. I'd talk to the people behind us. I'd talk to the ones kitty-cornered of us. I'd talk to everybody around us. And that was the only thing that I had said to Roland. And we got off the plane, and one of them, so this woman, one of the women that went with us, her name was Teresa. And she was a lot of fun. She liked to laugh and joke and cut up and go on. They all did to some degree, but she was just a really good sport. And I really enjoyed talking with her and going on. But she said, or one of them said, it might not have been her. It may have been Josh or Ken or one of them. But anyhow, one of them said, Matt, did you get any sleep? I said, Lord, no. I said, Roland's talked my ears off the whole time. Well, the plane, everybody that was right there in that section knew that Roland hadn't said a word, and I had talked to everybody, and the whole plane went to dying laughing. We got off in Amsterdam, and then, I don't know, we had maybe a couple hours or two to kill there in Amsterdam, and then we got on another flight. So we left out that morning. You take off, you get to wherever you're going, and then as you're crossing, it gets dark, and then it gets daylight on the same flight. Because you go through the night, and, you're going 7 hours ahead, so, it don't take, on an 8.5 hour flight, you go from dark to daylight into the next day. So we finally get on the other plane, get took off, and we got another 9 hour flight or so down to Nairobi. And we finally get there. Of course, by this time you're getting pretty tired, and you've done been up for probably more than 24 hours. And I don't sleep very well on the plane. I'm not designed for a plane. I'm 6 foot tall, long, lanky, and I'm not very wide, thank goodness, but my knees is usually in the tray table in front of me and all that kind of stuff. The vans, if they've got one of those dividers in them, usually I have to take it out so I can get the seat back far enough that I can not be crammed right up underneath the steering wheel. But anyhow, when we got there, Nairobi, is their big city. And it was dark as a dungeon as we was flying in. The only thing you could see was fires. Not street lights like you normally see coming into a city to land, but just fires. That was there wasn't really that many street lights, or it was just fires burning. And I'm like, oh, that's weird. Well, we land, and when we land, there was this smell, which the airport's like an open, well, it was at the first time I went. They've upgraded the airport quite a bit since then, but it's basically an open air airport. So the mosquitoes is flying, and you're right there. You're in it immediately. As soon as you get off the plane, here you are. So we get there, and this smell, though, it was a familiar smell. It was one that I had smelled before, but I couldn't put my finger on what the smell was. Well, they talked to us a little bit, and we loaded into some vehicles, and all through the night we went. I have no idea, didn't know where we was going or nothing else, and we finally, it took like, good Lord, and when we landed, it was like 11:30. By the time we get through the customs and getting some money and getting your luggage and them going through your luggage, you know, it was probably 2 o'clock in the morning when we finally get to where we were going. And they said, well, listen, you know, you're going to be inside this compound, and I'm going to say some things that maybe some of you's never heard of before, but we were staying at a compound that was built by Church of the Nazarene. So there's a denomination called the Nazarenes, the Nazarites. And you don't really have too many of them here in the South. I mean, you know, this is Baptist country here. But very nice place. And they had, you know, I was trying to be real careful. I'd told Amy that I would be careful. I'd try to watch, you know, and if I thought of anything I didn't like it, I'd purify my water, this, that, and the other. And they told us, you know, the water's good. Don't worry about it. You don't have to do nothing. It's filtered, this, that, and the other. So, you know, I wasn't too awful concerned with it. But, you know, I told her, you know, I'm bad for wandering and looking and sometimes wandering off. And I told her, I'm not going to do them things. I'm going to stay right with the other missionaries. You know, I'm going to stay right with them. And where they go, I'll go. And, you know, I told Amy that that's all them things that I was going to do. And, well, anyhow, so the next morning, I wake up, and the place we was staying, the room we was staying in, anyhow, I just decided, you know what, I'm just going to take the couch and crash, and I just crashed there on the couch, and I got up, I woke up, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 hours I was awake, and, you know, and birds is chirping and whatnot, and so I ended up going out, and one of the guards could speak a little English there, and you know, they got razor wire. It looked like a prison. Got razor wire around the thing, and in these countries, you'll see they'll have, you know, a concrete wall, and they'll have just shards of glass stuck all in it, and then they'll have the razor wire, and then they'll have, you know, if it's a really good one, secure one, they'll have electric fence around, you know, that's up another 3 or 4 feet. So it had all that stuff, and I was just like, well, so I talked to him for a little bit, and seemed like somehow or another I got a paper. And in Kenya, their national language is English, even though everyone speaks Swahili. And there is, I mean, you can make do. Even if you talk like I talk, you might have to slow down a little bit, but you can make do speaking English and not speaking Swahili. You can get around. And finally, some more of them got up, and we'd walk down around the corner to some baker or something other and got some stuff. And anyhow, as I was looking in the paper, and I noticed there was a lot of, one thing that we don't have like in our airports is like when you land, you know, in the United States, you generally don't see, you know, armed guards with M16s, you know, just there at the airport, and a lot of roadblocks with guys with M16s and things like that. You just don't have that here in the U.S., but there it's very common. But they had been having riots and stuff, and trouble had brewed up, and the smell that I was smelling was that they was setting cars and tires on fire. Well, when we was young, growing up especially, we'd set a tire on fire when we was sledding, because that was the easiest thing to get caught on fire, and it burned good and hot, and you warm by it. And that's the smell I was smelling, was that burning, the tires are burning and stuff. And what we got?
1407.
1407. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave you there with me in Nairobi. And then the next one we will continue on with us loading up. And as up to this point, the trip is pretty good. You know, pretty nice place to stay, pretty nice stuff to eat. But don't worry, things are about to change. All right, guys. We love you and we mean it. We'll talk to you later. Bye now.